My name is Issun Park. I was born in October 1942. I was born in Kaesong, North Korea. I spent about 1.5 to 2 years in Hamgyongdo. And we moved down to Seoul, Korea, South Korea, in 1944. So I spent most of my childhood in Seoul. My father was he was the academic dean of Seoul University, so housing was provided. He had his education in Japan, high school, and he went to Kyoto University. Actually, my father studied religious philosophy at college. He translated Bible. He gave us freedom to think and make our own decisions. Actually, he got married when he was 14. My mom was 4 years older than my father, but she stayed with in-laws, and my father went to Japan for education. That was very unique at that, period of time for Koreans to go to Japan and, get education. And my mother was also educated. She graduated from high school, Gyeonggi High School. That's, the best one in, Korea. And she taught school as well. June 24th evening, my father came home early from school, and he said, "We have to get out of this place." And my mom said, "Why? Just don't ask too many questions. Just, we have to get out, we have to hurry." And my mom said, "But we have to take this and that." And my father said, "There's no time, and we just have to get out." So it was kind of raining that night. And we were crossing, and I was almost 8. It was June, so I would have been 8 years old in October. We crossed Han River. As soon as we crossed, we heard this bomb sound. And my father said, Han River was bombed. It's gone. So we barely escaped Seoul. Let's see, my oldest brother, who was a senior in high school, couldn't come with us. He was at school, and of course he was drafted. And so I remember my mom crying every night. He was drafted, so she was very worried about him. And I remember every morning, my mom and sister would take 2 buckets, 1 bucket in each hand, and go and line up for an hour or longer to get some water, so we could have water to cook and wash. I remember that vividly, even now. I hung around with these neighborhood kids. They said, "Issun, let's go to the train station, and we can get some gum." So I said, "Why not? Okay." And we would go and we'll see GIs. And I learned 2 words: "Give me gum." Actually 3. "Give me gum," and and put my hand out. And of course, I didn't tell my mom. She would have gotten upset. She was not strict, but I guess she didn't want her daughter to beg for anything. My sister was going. She was attending medical school. She had a boyfriend. Actually, later we found out that he was one of my father's students. He said, he told my father, "You cannot go back to Seoul because there are so many communist students at SNU. So, you will either be kidnapped or killed. So you have to, get a job somewhere else. Maybe should go out of country." That's when my father looked for a job, and he got a job at U.S. Army, stationed in Tokyo, Japan. He was interpreter. So we were on this small boat. I was young, so as long as my mom was, by me, I wasn't afraid. But thinking back, it was a very, very dangerous journey. My first school in Japan was a Korean school run by communists. They knew my father was working, for U.S. Army, but they treated me nicely. I attended 1 year and 1 semester. Then I transferred to Korean school run by Korean government. Japanese people mistreated Korean people. So a lot of Korean people did not admit that they were Koreans, even those who were born in Japan. The policeman would come, they would come and knock on the door and ask for ID. We didn't have it. So, but we had PX ID. We could go to PX or commissary. So my mom would show them, it was in English. So they will go, okay, thank you very much. And my mom would hand them pack of cigarettes. So they came to our house for cigarettes, for American cigarettes. They knew we were not legal. My mom and I were not legal residents of Japan. Yeah, we lived in Japan for 7 years, and then my father's job was transferred to Okinawa. So we went to Okinawa in 1959 for 3 years. And I went to American high school in Okinawa. It was on the base. So I graduated from American high school in Okinawa. Because I was treated equally. I didn't feel any discrimination. We were not wealthy, but my mom dressed me, really nicely. So I didn't feel any discrimination, really. Then after high school, I came to the States in 1962, first to San Francisco, because that's where my brother was staying during summer. He was doing his PhD in journalism. September, he went back to his school in Illinois. So that's where I went to school, Illinois. My husband was doing fellowship in Seattle at University of Washington. Well, it was, we were introduced by a mutual friend. And this lady asked my brother, is your younger sister married? He said, no. So, well, there's this bachelor, he's nice. He's a medical doctor, so, would you be interested in introducing your sister to him? And he said, why not? His roommate at Poughkeepsie happened to be my brother's, one of his best high school friends. So he inquired about our family, and, anyway, he came, and we went out. The next day was my birthday, and he asked my brother to drive him to a florist. So my brother said, okay. So we went to florist, and he brought out a dozen red roses, and he gave it to me for my birthday. I thought that was nice of him. The next day we went out together, borrowed my brother's old car, Chevy, old car. We went to a Holiday Inn, a bar. And then he proposed to me that night. After we met for 2 days. And he even brought wedding ring. So I told him, frankly, I said, I don't know you. I mean, I need time to get to know you. And he said, yeah, that's true. But he said, I'm 32, I'm getting old. And he said, I can pretend to be the person that you want me to be. As long as you need, but he wasn't going to wait. I went back home and my brother and sister-in-law asked me, what happened? I said, he proposed. What did you say? I said, no. So they sat me down for hours till 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, trying to convince me. I said, okay. And the next morning, early morning, my brother woke up and he went to his hotel and told him. I said, okay. So that evening, we had engagement dinner at my brother's small apartment. He's smart. I respect that in men. Yeah, that was, and good heart, very kind. He's been good father to my, 3 boys. No regrets. I'm glad I married him. I'm still very conservative, traditional, yet not real Korean. I think I was influenced a lot by my father. He was very liberal, open-minded. We never forced our boys to, go into certain direction or study this. You have to become this or this. They were free to choose. Maybe even though myself, my husband, and my 2 other boys don't feel the same as my youngest one. And he said he was going to go to Korea to teach English. So I said, okay. So he went, and he fell in love with Korea. And I asked him, why? Well, Mom, in America, when I walk, somebody walks by me, and a lot of times that person would turn around and take a second look at him. And he didn't like that. He felt uncomfortable. But in Korea, he looks just like all other people. So he feels comfortable. And I didn't know that. Race problems, that's not in my vocabulary. We have good relationship with our neighbors, even now. I never felt I was out of place in America. And his 2 older brothers cannot understand how he feels, but that's what he told us after he went back. My oldest granddaughter just graduated from college, and very proud of her. Told her to do her best, be honest, kind, and work hard and be independent. My name is Issun Park. This is my Korean-American story.